So this week we are going to be covering stored procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers. Last week we covered scripts, and that comprises the 4 types of procedural programs that you can code using SQL. So stored procedures are basically executed by the end user. They are created typically by a database administrator, and they can do queries on tables. They can do updates. They can generate reports for display. You can send a parameter. It can return a parameter, and a parameter is just data. So you can send a stored procedure data, and a stored procedure can return data. It's kind of universal, so you can run stored procedures in any SQL interface. And because they're precompiled, they run very quickly. Also, because the database administrator creates them and can give the users permission to execute them, the database administrator has quite a bit of control over what the users can see. User-defined functions are very similar to the built-in functions that you used a couple weeks ago. The main difference is that you are the person who creates a user-defined function. So any routine that you think you're going to use more than once, you can create a function. And functions can receive parameters, so you can send it data if it needs data to process. But a function always returns data. Okay, so that's a big difference between a function and a procedure, because a function is always going to return data. Procedure might not. It can run in any SQL interface. And again, the whole purpose of a function is that you have some kind of routine that you want to execute more than once. And a function allows you to create the code one time and reuse it. Probably my favorite type of procedural program is a trigger, because triggers work behind the scenes. So I think they're actually pretty cool. So you can create a trigger that will automatically execute if something is inserted, updated, or deleted. So for example, I know some of you in your final projects, you have totals. Let's say you have a price and a quantity, and if you multiply them together, you get the total. So you can actually create a trigger that will calculate the total and update the column. Okay, so when somebody inserts or updates a row, you can set up a trigger to automatically run and do the calculation. So to me, that is super cool. Also, if something is deleted, so let's say a row is deleted, you can create an archive table, and you can automatically add that data to the archive table. So you have a history of what has been deleted. Okay, so they take a little effort to set up, but once you have a trigger set up, it runs in the background. So to me, it's super cool, and we are also going to be learning about how to use triggers. Okay, so the lecture demo does go through and kind of breaks everything down for you, gives you tons and tons of examples. And you're going to need examples for the lab assignment, because you're going to be creating your own procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers for your final project. So the assignments for this week are a textbook assignment, and as always, this one is more directional. Okay, we've got videos, and there is some very specific directions that you will follow to create the procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers. Now, going through the textbook assignment, you are actually going to see all sorts of examples, and I want you to keep those in mind for when you do the lab assignment. Because between the textbook assignment and the information in the chapter key points, you're going to need to use both of those to do your lab assignment. Because the lab assignment is creating your own procedures, your own user-defined functions, and your own triggers for your final project database. Okay, and so I do have an example of my fictional bakery, and these are the procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers that I created for that. And so you're going to do something very similar in your final project. If you run into problems or if you have questions, please email me. You can also stop into the online office hours since I have so many of them now. So just let me know if you have any questions. And I hope you guys are all had a great spring break and are ready to get back to work.